So my computer just switched to 11 o'clock. So if you have not put your name and library in the chat, go ahead and do that. And we're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. Is there any public comments that we'd like to bring before the committee? I don't hear anything. Usually by the end of the meeting there is. So just if you have something, kind of hold on to it and we'll get to it at the end of the meeting. The first thing on our agenda is just a reminder that the next regional training refresh is scheduled for Tuesday, September 12th at Livingston County Library. That's in Chillicothe. So to make a reservation, you need to email your name and your library. And if you have any special dietary restrictions, because Livingston County is going to be providing us with a lunch that day. So if you have any dietary restrictions, put that in your email also. And I've included who to send it to. So send it on to Sue and she will get you in the list. So I'm hoping this is the last. We will have completed our first round of training. And so for those of you that had to wait to be the last, thank you for your patience. We're ready to get to you guys. So this is primarily for the Northwest quadrant of the state, but having said that, if you want to come in from a further distance, we would be more than happy to have you there. The more, the better. So that information is there, and I've included, when I sent out the invite, I sent a flyer that you can use to share with, I don't know if your director is at this meeting or not, but anyway, so we'd love to see you there. So the second thing on our list is the continuation of the working out of a report for the data integrity and purging project. We did pass the policy at the last membership meeting. And so now Diane and I especially have been working back and forth with Equinox, which, by the way, they have been very responsive to us. So kudos to Equinox. We think we have finally arrived at the report that we want to use. It's been a little bit of back and forth. Can we tweak this? Can we tweak that? But so I've included the title of the report in the agenda today. And I also included how you find it, because it took me a bit to figure out where do I kept just pasting in the title in the template place to get to it. But it's like, okay, next year, where do I go? So this is the directions of how to get to it, to look at it. Diane is in the final stages of creating the instructions, and our hope is that everything will be sent out. I don't want to promise the end of the week, but probably by the beginning of next week. That way, give us just a couple more extra days there to get it all perfect, exactly how we want it. Just a little bit about this report and why we landed and kept tweaking to get to this report. So when you run this report, your output is going to display in 3 columns. And we can thank Diane for this, because she's gone through and written out all this in the instructions. It's going to show your barcode. It's going to show whether your patron is active or inactive. It's going to give the privilege expiration date and the short policy name, which is actually just your library. So when I run all of Cass County, it will individually show me from what branch those barcodes are coming from. So that's the first thing. Output, we also want you to know, will not include patrons who are barred, and it will not include anybody that has already been deleted. So you're not repeating your work. The last thing, kind of some of the last tweaks we did, you will be able to limit the output to include patrons who owe less than a dollar amount that your library determines. The original report they sent us, you pretty much had to put in 0. But if your library is saying, okay, I'm willing to expire all these really long, delete all of these really long expired accounts as long as they owe, say, less than $15 or $20. So you can put in that amount, and then the report is only going to pull up patron accounts that have that amount or less. So if you put in $10, it's going to show $10 and less. If you put in 25, it's going to be 25 and less. But that's going to allow our libraries to make some decisions based on what their administration is comfortable with, and what their library board is comfortable with on what kind of fines and fees they are willing to delete those accounts for. So I said before, it's going to show you if they are active or inactive. Those accounts that are active are going to be, you'll be able to tell they're active accounts because in the active column, there will be a number 1. And in the active column, there'll be a 0 if they are inactive. And I have gone through and double checked that that is true. So Diane and I believe that we've pretty much found the easiest one, the easiest report to use that's going to get us to the information that we want to have and need to have in order to do this deleting project. So like I say, my goal is to have all the instructions to everybody by the end of the week, but possibly maybe the first of the week, Diane and I need to talk just slightly bit more on what we're going to send out. I will also be sending it to Ron Eifert to put on the website. So there will be a permanent place that you can go to access the report, the report name and all the instructions for how to proceed. So having said all of that amount of information, do people have questions?
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment.
Okay.
Thank you for doing the hard work, because I know what a bear that was to pin it down. And for telling us what the things mean. Like sometimes you'll see something in a column and you're like, what does 1 mean inactive?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's going to save a lot of, troubleshooting on my end for sure. So
exactly. Diane, is there anything that you would like to say about it?
No, I think you did a good job explaining.
Okay. Questions? I would say Diane would be a resource for helping you work through that. I would be willing to be a resource if you get to the process and you have questions about what to do. Diane, are you willing to do that? I just kind of
yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So there you have 2 resources that if you get stuck or unsure, feel free to email or call one of us.
So I have a question about that. So once we've created that report that shows these are patrons we want to remove from our database, then we give that report to Equinox? Or
no.
we just go ahead and purge them and let them do the deleting part?
We go ahead and delete those, and Diane has included specific step-by-step instructions on how to, once you get your report, what you do with the report.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
once everything is deleted, it's just kind of sitting there in deleted status until Equinox does the big purge.
Okay, that's
hoping is going to be in January before we do the upgrade to 3.9.
Okay.
So
that's great. That's good. That's helpful.
okay. Hopefully we've got in the instructions every step of what you're going to need to do, especially this first time around. I was going through Diane's instructions and just doing every single thing that she said to make sure that I could that it made sense to me and I could figure out how to do it. So she's done a good job on there. There's just maybe one more little tweak on the instructions that we might do, and then we'll be ready to send it out. So,
Rhonda,
yes.
one thing that I had a colleague ask me yesterday that, I mean, we probably only have half of the libraries represented here, but you might need to reach out, is I had a colleague say that her predecessor told her she could never, ever, ever delete a card, even if the person was dead.
We've heard, I think, we heard that from Mobius, was possibly the originator of that. Diane, do you have insight
Yes,
on
that's what I remember hearing from Mobius early on was don't delete until you have captured your circulation numbers for your annual report. And that turns out not to be true. Because the circulation information is attached to the item, not to the patron. So if you delete a patron today, it doesn't mean things they checked out yesterday are now have one fewer circulation than they did before you deleted that patron. So you will not lose your circulation statistics. When you delete a patron though, when you looked at the circulation history, instead of saying Diane Disbro, it'll have like brackets and some word in there. I don't know. Age circulation maybe is what it says. So it shows it was circulated from November to December 2020, but it won't have anybody's name attached to it. That's what we lose. And that is what we want to lose, because we do not want to be able to look at what Diane Disbro circulated in 2012. And we don't want anybody else to be able to look at that information or where Diane Disbro lived in 2012. We want to get rid of that. And we don't want to be reporting that we have patrons that we don't really have because we haven't seen them for 3 years. You know, you could end up with as many patrons in your patron database as you have in your service area, which we know is not true.
Right. So you do have opportunity. We're not really asking or requiring that you do this immediately. I know our library director at Cass County is, now that I've created the list, basically, he is actively going to try to re-engage with some of those patrons. So it might be a little bit of time before Cass County actually does the actual deleting, because he was interested in seeing how many of those patrons could we possibly get coming back into the library using online services or anything like that. So the goal is that we have this done by the end of the year. So the CERC committee is going to be occasionally reminding you that, oh, by the way, we need to get this done. And it's not just that we're having all these old, cluttered up ILS. It's also, it is for also for the purpose of maintaining our database to where it's accurate as it is. We're reporting on what is accurate, the number of people that we accurately have right now to the state report, as well as if, God forbid, we would have a data breach, that would be that number of people that you would not have to try to go back to and reconnect with them on that. So any other questions or comments? Okay. The last thing in the new business, I wanted to start a discussion about training for trainers. The cataloging committee has a person, the consortium cataloger is part of her job is to make sure training takes place throughout the consortium, and that a more uniform standard of catalog is maintained across Missouri Evergreen. Circulation does not have a person in that role. And so for these regional trainings, Diane and I have been going to all these regional trainings, which we've loved. It's been wonderful to hang out with. But my library director does not want me to continue going to be the one to go to every single one of these, because it requires a day of travel. Often it requires a hotel stay, some things like that. So he's been willing to do it for this go round, I guess. And I would imagine Steve there in Scenic probably feels the same way. So I want to entertain, or I think we need to entertain, pulling together a group of people who are talented or at least willing to learn how to train other people. And so somebody, you know, maybe that already at your library is the trainer for your people that we could get together with and make sure we've shared all of the knowledge that we're going to share at these circulation refreshes, so that we could have people strategically placed to where they might only have to do, I mean, have to do is the wrong word. They might be the one that's closest to this particular circulation refresh. And so they would be the one that goes to that training. Is that making sense? I hope. Anyway, what circulation committee, I guess this is kind of on us. What do you think, and how do you think we should proceed?
Rhonda, I'm in agreement as far as it goes that we need to kind of spread, the workflow, I think,
Yeah.
around a little bit more. And we've talked about this, I think, amongst all the other evergreen, services that we do provide amongst ourselves, that it needs to kind of be spread out. So, I think we can kind of entertain the idea of getting some volunteers maybe to start with at least, and see what we can come up with. And I myself, I could possibly be willing to do it in our area.
Woohoo!
I mean, I'll
here already.
I'll have to discuss it with our director and everything
sure,
to get approval, but I would be willing to offer that.
Okay. Anybody else from the committee? I don't know if Meredith's on the call, Terry.
I'm very interested in it. I worked in Boy Scouts for 20 years with my 5 sons. And so train the trainer was key to every successful unit that we had. So I would love to be part of that.
This is Meredith. I am on the call. I am a branch manager who is knee deep in circulation, but not hip deep. So I would probably not be the best fit for that, just because I'm not a day-to-dayer in it. So I relay what I have here and go back and forth with it, but I don't think I would have the depth of knowledge that would be the most effective for that.
Sure. And I don't personally, I do not believe it has to be somebody who's on the committee itself to be this trainer, because there is talent across the whole consortium. And I would love to pull in some other people to get their feet wet, so to speak, into Missouri Evergreen and what it really takes to maintain a strong growing consortium. So personally, I don't think you have to be on the committee to sign up for this. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but
Is Missouri Evergreen already divided up into regions or districts or anything like that? That would be kind of cool to have, you would know that from this quadrant, we have that representative kind of a thing.
well, when we started, when they asked Diane and I to figure out something, we really didn't have any guidance. So we just said, okay, we're going to divide the state into 4 quadrants, and that's what we did. But I believe cataloging, and I went back and looked, I need to talk to Liz again. She had this handy dandy little cool map, and she had divided the state into 6 quadrants. with the goal of keeping any kind of travel time under 2 hours. So I think I am interested in going more that way if we can have more people who would be willing to be these trainers. If we don't, then I don't know that I want to personally commit to going 6 different places.
I wonder if it would be worth looking at Liz's map and contacting the directors
Ooh. now
to
there's-
ask if there's someone on their staff that they think would be good at this. And they'd be willing for their staff person to do it.
Right. That's a good idea. Oh, but I take notes here.
And side note, whoever's Samsung SMA, if you can mute your mic, your shuffling's carrying through.
Get on the tablet, but
All right, sorry. Okay, I don't. Let me see if I can.
Oh, there it goes.
Ha. I'm kind of Zoom challenged. I mean, I know enough to get this going, and I've learned how to snip the video at the end and all of that, but it's like, okay, how do I mute them? And so I know Meredith, thank you very much, has helped me before do that. So anyway, okay, so anything else that you can think of that would help? My thought is that once we get our list of people who might be willing to do this, that we set up a Zoom meeting and we do training for trainers over Zoom so that we don't all have to, because we'd all be coming from Timbuktu to get there. So what do you think that would be an effective way to actually cover all of that?
Yeah, I think the Zoom meetings should be appropriate for that, because then we don't have further travel. I don't think there's really a need for in-person training as far as that goes.
Right.
Is there something set up for the new libraries coming on? Is there like a team that goes and is there for them? Is there anything coordinated like that?
There is actually, Diane, you could speak to this because you just worked with St. Joe, and Mary Ann, you could kind of chime in there too. Could you explain how that process for CERC kind of worked?
Yes, when a library is coming on, a partner library is assigned to them to answer questions. We used to go through the training with them, but now we have a migration specialist who goes through the training with the new library and can interject how Missouri Evergreen does things, because Equinox has really learned a lot about how Missouri Evergreen functions. But there are still a few things that you want a representative from Missouri Evergreen to be present to answer questions and to point out, well, we do it such and such a way. Like, we don't bill for lost items till they've been lost for 6 months. Those are the kinds of things that Missouri Evergreen representative can do. And answer questions during the whole migration time, be on site on the migration day to answer, oh my gosh, I don't remember what happened in training, what they told us in training about this, or something comes up that's inexplicable. You've got a Missouri Evergreen person on right there to answer the questions. Yes, Scenic was just the migration partner for St. Joseph Public Library. And Mary Ann, who is on the call, can talk about that from her perspective.
Yes, it was great having someone here, because I know with Equinox, they come at it from a different angle than what, and a lot of times we were confused. It's like, okay, one has one rules for this, but let's look at the local Evergreen and how they look at it. And so that was really nice to have people here that could answer those questions and get it from a hands-on experience instead of just from the technical side of it. So it was very valuable to have that on site, and it's good that they will continue that and to get this whole training thing. I think it's very beneficial to new libraries coming in and having the documents updated too, because some of the things on the website are older and I know that they're working on that, because that's like our Bible that we go to, you know, that or it is for me. I'm always watching that Greg Whitmore and all his videos and some of them are older. And so and I know it's a huge undertaking to keep all that stuff updated. So it's just great to have a partner library to ask the questions and get the answers. So thank you. That was good, a good experience.
Okay, so that's a good segue into our next thing. I've kind of held off. We have a committee, so Terry and Meredith and I, and anybody else would be welcome if they wanted to work on reorganizing the circulation documents that are on our circulation training part of the website. I kind of held off on it because the executive committee was going to be speaking about that, and I kind of wanted to see maybe if there was a direction that they wanted us to go as opposed to just jumping in there willy-nilly. So for those of you on that committee, I will probably be contacting you this week to set up a Zoom so that we can kind of really dig in. And like Marianne said, there's some things that take you to I forget the one document, what it was called, but it's like a quick start for new libraries. And it takes you to the wrong circulation policy, and it takes you to the wrong materials best handling practices. And so while I think that's probably a great document to have, it's not working as it is. So as soon as we can get that going and get that done, we'll forward all of that on to Ron or whoever, I'm not sure, Ron and maybe some other helpers, redoing the whole Missouri Evergreen website. So expect an email from me and with some various suggested times. And if none of those work, we'll just duke it out until we get a time that we can Zoom together. Okay. Anything else that anybody would like to bring forward for discussion? You guys are all really quiet, so I'm guessing maybe not. All right. As long as you have made sure that your name and oh, okay, that Liz has in the chat. My map split the state into 6 areas, but there was some overlap. So that way, I suspect maybe some people could pick one or the other, then would be my guess. And if Liz is still on the call, could you email me that map? I would really appreciate it. I know I had it at some point or saw it, but I cannot find it anywhere in my files. So that would be great. All right, not hearing. Oh, Steve is saying he'd love to see that map too. So that's probably a good thing as far as kind of just dividing up as we get bigger and bigger, it's hard to get everybody together, get everybody on the same page. So, okay. If that's it, if nobody has anything else, I'm going to call this meeting closed. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.